first stage of fitting the bumper is preparing it for the winch. I've put the adapter plate onto the front bumper. Now I'm going to drill the holes in the plate and through the winch plate on the bumper so I can mount the winch. I'm doing all this before I even start taking the YXZ apart, because the winch needs to be mounted to the bumper before I can fit it. So let's drill 2 holes. I've got it mounted on a piece of wood here so I don't drill into my carpet. That's just to deburr the holes that have come through the bottom. Right, that's the holes drilled. I need to tighten up the mounting plates on that, so that's my next job now, tighten them 4 bolts up. Tighten up all the mounting hardware now on the plate. Tools I'm using: 4mm Allen key, M6 stainless steel bolts, nylock nuts, 3/8 drive ratchet with a 10mm socket. So, and then I can mount the winch. So once I've got access, I'm going to mount and tighten up the fair lead. So as I can get to it all nice and easy now. So for this, it's an 8mm Allen. And I believe 15mm. So we've got the plate mounted, fair lead mounted. Now I've got to stick the winch on, which then makes this bumper even heavier. Because if I don't do this now, I won't have access to these mounting bolts. So, one winch, one bolt, two bolts. So I'm going to need 13mm socket, 3/8. And 6mm Allen. Again, all stainless steel hardware. And I think I'm going in from, I'm not sure, let's try it. Put it like that. Yep, we're going in like that. That's my bolt started. Two bolts started. Can't get him in the socket, I'm going to have to go in with a ring spanner. And I'm going to go in with that. have clearance on the winch. Let's tighten the last bolt up and we are mounted. So we've got a Rhino 3000 winch now mounted to the Yamaha trail front bumper with winch plate, and I'm on synthetic rope. So the winch is secure on its adapter plate on the bumper. So I'm actually ready now to start stripping the YXZ. So let's get the bumper out of the way for a bit, because we don't need it for a while. I'm going to put that down the back of the YXZ, so we're not falling over it all the time. Let's put spanners back. That has become amazingly heavy. Let's move it out of our way. So now I can start taking the front grab rail off the YXZ, anti-roll bar off, and then trying to figure out how to mount everything back on. So let me get all my tools ready and I'll bring you back in a minute. Right, now I'm ready to remove the front skid plate, and on the front skid plate there are 8 10mm bolts, and the front grab rail, I'm going to remove that, and that's secured with 4 14mm bolts. And the bolts are here and here, and the same on the other side. Skid plate, I've got 1, 2, and there's another 6 if we can get underneath and find them. There are another 6 bolts under here, so I need to remove all of them. So that's going to be my next little task. So I'm going to get to working on them. So whiz bang gun time. Front skid plate. Front skid plate removed, grab rail removed, and there's the hardware for it. It's a good idea at this point to clean all the mounting points whilst you've got the plate off so everything's clean and no dirt gets trapped behind the new pieces. So I'm just going to wipe them off with an oily rag. I'm not throwing that away, I'm going to keep that. Because one day, in the very distant future, we might sell the YXZ, and if I do, I'd be buying another one, and I'd want all my bits to go onto the new one. So for now, we'll keep all the bits and continue on with disassembly. Let's get the skid plates off. As I say, they're all 10mm. I need these for reassembly afterwards.
Find another one. So that's the front grab rail moved and the skid plate removed. To remove the anti-roll bar, 12mm socket required. There's one loose. Look there, the socket into the top one. That's my ratchet spanner.
So now we've removed the grab rail, and we've also removed the skid plate. My next task is to remove the 4 bolts that hold the anti-roll bar onto the chassis. So we've got 2 on each side, 1 up here, 1 down here on both sides. They're 12mm. So I'm going to crack them now, move the anti-roll bar out of the way, and then I think I'll start mounting hardware back onto the YXZ. So we've loosened off the anti-roll bar, and that should now give me the access I need to fish this mounting plate into place. I've got to get that down the back, so I've got to figure out how to do that now. That could be fun. That's got to fit down that gap. This is the Chinese conundrum, this one. So I'm going to figure that out now, get that into place. That's the mounting hardware for the anti-roll bar out of the way. I've taken the brackets off the anti-roll bar. Now I've got to remove the anti-roll bar. So you've got to lock the ball joint up with a 14, and the big nut on the anti-roll bar is a 17. What I'm doing here now is removing the anti-roll bar. I've got 14mm locking it off, 17mm ratchet spanner undoing the nut. I think once I've got the anti-roll bar off, I can finish fishing the plate through, because I think you just need that little bit of room. So that's what I'm going to do now. Some of the procedures are quite a bit different to the Polaris. Anti-roll bar system on the Polaris was nowhere near as sophisticated as this. It was really simple. But Yamaha have made it quite accessible to get to everything. Everything is easy to get to. Right, I've only got to do the same on the other side now, so I'll spare you the boredom of watching me, and we'll turn the camera off until I've got that out. What I'm doing here now is removing the anti-roll bar. I've got 14mm locking it off, 17mm ratchet spanner undoing the nut. I think once I've got the anti-roll bar off, I can finish fishing the plate through, because I think you just need that little bit of room. So that's what I'm going to do now. So I fished the anti-roll bar out, so I'm hoping that's going to give me the clearance now to slide the plate in. So let's put that somewhere safe with the rest of the bits and see if we can get this plate in. And pray I get it in the right way round. Oh, we're close. I can't quite get it where I want it. Oh, I'm silly close. We're in. Oh, we've got the plate in. Whether it's the right way round or not, I don't know. But it looks like it. I would say so. I think that's where it goes. So, there's just enough room to get that plate in with the anti-roll bar out. It's very tight. Now we've got the plate in, we're going to put the long bolts and the spacers in that go through the frame cross member at the front. And locate the plate. So let's get one spacer in, one bolt, and then see if we can locate it on there. Try that. This is where you need somebody with a torch to hold it for you while you're doing it. Maybe another pair of hands. I'm not sure if these go through forwards or backwards. These actually go in from the back. They don't go in from the front. They go like that. So I got that one in the wrong place. So I've got to get that one into there. Into the spacer. And there. Have a fight. There we are. That's the two long ones in at the back. So, now it's saying secure the backing plate to the anti-sway bar brackets with the two M8 by 20 hex bolts. I'll find them. Somewhere. Where do I refit the anti-roll bar? So I've got to use hardware now. I've got to use these 4 bolts to secure the plate to where the anti-roll bar fastens. It's only temporary. They've all got to come out again afterwards to secure the anti-roll bar. But for now, we've just got to get that plate secured. So there's the plate. She's in here. She'll eventually sit in that sort of position. So my next job is to put the long M8s in the back there with the spacers. So we're going to find all the hardware for that now, which should be that one, that one, that one, and that one. And we've got to figure out which way these bolts go in. So let's have a look. So they go in from the front. These go in there and screw into the back plate with the spacers on them. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to find the appropriate Allen key for the bolts, locate one and fight with the other one. And then that's the back plate in. And then I think I can put the anti-roll bar back on. But so far, I've got to admit, it's not been a hard job. I think it's a job anybody could do at home if they just take the time, be methodical about it, read the instructions. I initially thought if I just took the clamps off the anti-roll bar it would give me enough room, but you just need that little bit more room, so the anti-roll bar does have to come off. But it's not an issue, it's quite easy to get off. So, plate on now. Right, we've got the plate mounted on all the hardware, using the 4 bolts for the anti-roll bar bracket just to secure it in place. I've got my sliding movement, which I'm going to need because the grab bar is sandwiched between this and the frame. Long bolts are in with the spacers. So now, next stage is fit the grab bar and the winch. This could be quite awkward because it's really, really heavy, but let's see what we can do. I'm just going to temporarily fasten the 4 bolts in the edge onto the YXZ, just so the plate doesn't fall off, rattle around or anything stupid. I'm just going to screw them in by hand. Just for now. It just makes it a little bit easier whilst I'm locating the 4 bolts at the back of the plate that hold the anti-roll bar on. One more. And these are temporary. Right, now I'm going to use the 4 bolts at the back. These are actually quite awkward. Over there. That's 2 of them in. They can come out now, they've done their job. 14. At least 13. Nothing's tight, everything's still loose. Because that's what they're telling me to do, just nip things up. Everything still moves. Good. So we've got the backing plate on, held on with the 4 bolts at the back for the anti-roll bar mount. Got our 2 long M8 Allen bolts with the spacers. So, where are we headed now? Now it says, install the winch and the fair lead to the front grab bar. We've already done that. And then, next stage is install the front grab bar with the winch mount with the 4 M10 flange bolts, which are the ones I've just taken out, which are these, which go in the sides. So it looks like now I'm going to go and have a fight with the front grab bar. So I'm just going to have a quick wipe down, get any dirt off everything before we fasten everything back up. Clean all this. Everything there's loose where it needs to be. I still have some holes to drill in the skid plate. Not going to worry about that for the second. I'm going to take a break, I'm going to have a cup of coffee, and then I'm going to do the front grab bar onto the YXZ. I didn't want to show you me struggling trying to mount the 2 bottom bolts, because that bumper with that winch on is so heavy. It's you don't have to become a contortionist. So we use the lift to support it on whilst I sort of lined the two bottom bolts up. I've got the two bottom bolts in so I can swivel it. I'm now going to try and line the two top ones up and hope that everything is going to go where it needs to go. I think I need to get them two out of the way. It needs to go up there somewhere. Well, that's 3 on. Don't need that anymore. Well, except for them two M8 bolts in the back, we've got the front bumper on with the winch, and my god, that was heavy. I'm not tightening anything up yet. Because I need to get anti-roll bar on next. I need this still slightly loose. But she's on. So after a struggle, I've got the bumper and the winch mounted. I've got the two bolts on either side, and the bumper actually sandwiches between the back plate and the frame. With the winch on this bumper, it is so awkward. You have to put the two bottom bolts in first so you can hinge it up. There's no way you're going to try and get two in one side and then go to the other side. You've got to get the two bottom ones in first. But it's on. And it doesn't half look mean. So now I've got to fish the anti-roll bar back in. Get that mounted back up, get that back onto its swivels. Use the new anti-roll bar brackets, which have come with the kit. Tighten everything up, and the only last thing I've got to put back on that's in the box now is the hook. So the big part of the job's done. Getting it on. Oh my god, it was hard. Really, it's a two-man job to get the bumper up, because you really do need somebody just to give you a hand. But luckily I've got the lift. I can support it on the lift. But there she is. I'll fish the anti-roll bar through now, and I'll show you that when it's all finished, and I'll tighten all the bolts up, and well, we'll think about then getting some wiring sorted out, but I'm afraid that's not going to be today. That's going to be another video. Right, we're looking down at the back plate here on the YXZ1000. Down here, 2 Allen bolts. They've got to be fitted and tight before you can even consider putting the anti-roll bar on. I haven't shown you me tightening them bolts up. They are an absolute nightmare to get to. But they're both tight now and they're both done up to the torque. And I've just fitted the new brackets on the anti-roll bar. And we've refitted the anti-roll bar to the link. So that part of the job's now finished. And I've just realised I've got to take it all apart. Because I put the anti-roll bar on upside down. Not an issue. I can put that right now and I'll show you when I've done it correctly. Well, after the little assembly error of putting the anti-roll bar on the wrong way round, it's now correctly mounted. It's fastened onto both of the ball joints, and as before, it's bolted to the backing plate. The only thing I've got left to do now is tighten the 4 bolts up that hold, and I'm going to grab the socket that I need whilst we're here. It's 14mm. And I am going to tighten them up. That's them 2 done. 2 on the other side, and that one done. Before you shout at me, yes, I know there's a torque setting for these, but there's tight and there's tight. And I think I've been handling spanners long enough to know when something's tight enough. And that's tight enough. So, that is its final resting place. All I've got to do now is the wiring. So there you have it. Front trail bumper with winch, fair lead, synthetic rope on my YXZ. Next project. Wiring. I'm going to leave all this disassembled for now, so I can run the wiring up, through, somewhere through the bulkhead. Somewhere in there. All that wiring runs into the cab. So I'll find somewhere to chuck all that. There will be somewhere. And then I can pull the side panel off on the inside, wire up to the battery, put the switch in, and we got a working winch. So, I know this video is going to be massive, or should I say it was massive. You've just sat and watched it. Thank you for watching it if you watched it all the way through. I've tried to show you all the steps as possible. When you're working on your own, you've got one camera on the tripod over there, And this is my working space at the moment, because I can't be bothered to push it outside. It can get a little bit tight for me and the camera. So, hope you've enjoyed the fitting of this. I've enjoyed fitting it. I've learned how a lot of things come apart and come back together on the YXZ. And the more I pull it apart and put it back together, the more I appreciate Yamaha's excellent design. How everything just slots together, how everything just fits. It's superb build quality. Well done, Yamaha. Well done, YXZ1000R.